That night, he roared, "Get out of my house!" My husband nodded. I smiled and took the set of keys none of them knew I'd duplicated. They thought I was leaving with just a suitcase. They didn't know I kept access to the safe, the lake house, and the family company's internal network. I'd arrived here with nothing, but I was leaving with trust documents, ledger copies, and a police officer waiting outside. My name is Evelyn Hart, and I'm about to tell you how I dismantled the family that tried to destroy me. The grandfather clock in the Price family home struck 8:30 p.m. that Sunday evening. I heard every chime with crystalline clarity, the way you notice details when your world is about to shatter. The polished oak floorboards creaked under Gerald's weight as he stood from his throne-like chair at the head of the dining table. The smell of pot roast still hung in the air, mixing with the lemon wood polish Marlene religiously applied every Saturday. "Sign it," Marlene had said 15 minutes earlier, sliding the document across the mahogany table toward me. "It's just a formality for the insurance." I'd read enough contracts in my role as Chief Operating Officer at Northline Metrics to recognize a trap. The residential consent agreement would have legally reclassified me from a resident to a permitted guest, stripping away any tenant rights I might claim after 6 months of living under their roof. "I'll need to review this more carefully," I'd said, keeping my voice steady. That's when Gerald's face turned the particular shade of purple I'd learned to fear. "You ungrateful." He caught himself, his jaw working like he was chewing glass. "After everything we've done for you, letting you live here, feeding you, and you can't even sign a simple paper." Lucas, my husband of 3 years, shifted in his chair beside me. His eyes darted between his father and me, that familiar panic creeping into his features. The man who'd once promised to stand by me through anything was calculating which side would cost him less. "Dad, maybe we should," Lucas started. "Shut up," Gerald snapped. "Your wife thinks she's too good for this family, too important with her fancy job to follow simple house rules." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marlene's fingers drummed against the table 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Her tell when she was savoring someone else's humiliation. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I pay for the groceries. I paid for the new HVAC system. I loaned this family $120,000 to save your company. Get out of my house." The words exploded from Gerald like shrapnel. Spit flew from his mouth. The vein in his temple throbbed visibly. I looked at Lucas, my husband, the man who'd brought me to Briar Hollow, who'd promised me a fresh start, who'd sworn his family would love me, sat there and nodded. Just nodded. As if his father had asked him to pass the salt. "You heard him," Marlene said quietly, her thin lips curving into what might have been satisfaction. "Pack your things." I walked to the kitchen doorway where the key hooks hung a quaint touch Marlene had installed, each hook labeled with little brass plates. House, garage, office, lake house. My fingers closed around all of them with practiced ease. The metal was cold against my palm. "Those aren't yours," Gerald growled. "I'll return them when I'm done with what I need to do," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. The keys made a musical jingle as I slipped them into my pocket. My suitcase was already by the door. I'd learned to keep it ready these past 2 weeks as tensions escalated. The roller wheels clicked against the hardwood as I pulled it behind me. 3 steps to the door. 2. 1. "Don't come back," Gerald called after me. "You're nothing to this family. You never were." My hand touched the doorknob brass, always polished, installed by Gerald's father in 1973 according to the family lore they loved to recite. In my pocket, along with the keys, my phone sat heavy with its cargo of downloaded files, photographed documents, and recorded conversations. They thought they were casting out a beggar. They had no idea they were unleashing an auditor. I stepped into the cool September night, pulling the door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded like the setting of a trap. 6 months earlier, I'd arrived in Briar Hollow with 2 suitcases and the naive belief that love could bridge any divide. Lucas had painted his hometown as a hidden gem in the Midwest tight-knit community. Honest people, the kind of place where handshakes still meant something. He'd failed to mention that those handshakes could strangle you. The crisis hit Price Heating and Air in my second week there. Gerald had stormed into the kitchen at 6:15 a.m. His face ashen. "Bank's calling the loan," he'd announced. "48 hours or we lose everything." I'd watched Lucas crumble, Marlene clutch her coffee mug like a lifeline, and Gerald's hands shake as he spread the notices across the kitchen table. The company his father built, servicing every HVAC system from here to Madison County, was drowning in a perfect storm of delayed receivables and equipment loans. "How much?" I'd asked. "120,000. Minimum." Gerald hadn't looked at me when he answered. I had the money. Inheritance from my mother, sitting in treasury bonds and index funds. Smart money. Safe money. The kind you don't touch. "I can help," I'd said. The room had transformed. Suddenly, I wasn't the outsider who'd stolen their son away to Chicago for 2 years. I was salvation in a Brooks Brothers blouse. The loan documents I drafted with Westfield Community Credit were precise, professional. $120,000 at 4% interest. 90-day initial term, with an automatic conversion clause if payment was delayed beyond 90 days. The loan converted to 35% preferred equity in Price Heating and Air, non-voting, but with dividend priority and veto power over major expenditures. "That's harsh," the credit union manager had noted. "It's family," I'd replied. "I'm sure it won't come to that." Gerald had signed eagerly, called me daughter for the first time that day. The apartment Lucas and I were supposed to rent mysteriously developed foundation issues the next week. Marlene insisted we stay with them temporarily while repairs were completed. She'd even cleared out Gerald's study for us, hung new curtains, acted like she was doing us a favor. The temporary arrangement stretched. 1 month, 2, 3. The family dynamics shifted gradually. Like erosion you don't notice until the cliff is gone. My suggestions about updating the company's billing system were met with, "You don't understand how we do things here." My offer to help with the books got twisted into, "Evelyn thinks we're too stupid to handle our own finances." The repayment schedule became fluid. "Next month for sure," became, "After the Johnson project pays out," became, "Why are you pressuring us when we're letting you live here rent-free?" I kept every email, every text, every modified payment promise. From Gerald Price. Date, March 15th. "Evelyn, cash flow tight this month. We'll make double payment April. Family takes care of family." From Lucas Price. Date, April 23rd. "Babe, Dad says the payment thing is stressing Mom out. Can we talk about restructuring? Maybe forgive some interest since we're not charging you rent." From Marlene Price. Date, May 8th. "Evelyn dear, found this article about gift tax. Might be better for everyone if you consider the loan a gift. We can discuss at dinner." By June, they'd stopped acknowledging it was a loan at all. I'd become the unemployed daughter-in-law mooching off their generosity. Never mind my remote COO position, my 6-figure salary, the groceries I bought, the utilities I paid. "Evelyn doesn't contribute." I'd heard Marlene tell her sister on the phone. "Lives here like it's a hotel." Lucas's transformation was the cruelest cut. The man who'd bragged about my MIT MBA at our wedding now introduced me as staying home for a while. When I showed him the emails about the loan, he'd sigh. "Don't make this awkward. Ev, it's family money now." Family money. As if my mother's death benefit, carefully saved and invested, had somehow become community property the moment I'd tried to help. The day I discovered they'd lied about the apartment's foundation issues, saw the rental listing online showing it fully repaired and rented to another couple I knew I wasn't family, I was a mark. That's when I started making copies of keys. That's when I called Riley Moore. That's when I began documenting everything. The key copying started innocently enough. 3 weeks before that final Sunday, I'd volunteered to pick up Gerald's dry cleaning a peace offering after another tense dinner where I'd asked about the loan repayment. The keys jangled in my purse as I drove to Mason's Hardware instead. "Need copies," the teenager behind the counter asked, barely looking up. "Full set," I said, laying them out. 2 copies each. The garage key was standard, nothing special, but it opened more than just the garage door. It accessed the storage room where Gerald kept his private files. The lake house key was brass, worn smooth from decades of use. The office key had "Do Not Duplicate" stamped on it, but the kid either didn't notice or didn't care. That evening, I returned the originals to their hooks and began my real education in the Price family business. Riley Moore and I had been colleagues before I met Lucas. She'd left corporate accounting to become a freelance forensic specialist, the kind companies hired when they suspected internal fraud. When I called her, she didn't sound surprised. "Family business drama?" she'd asked. "Something like that." "Send me what you find. Encrypted files only." My first expedition was to the garage at 2:45 a.m. on a Tuesday. Lucas slept like the dead after his nightly 3 beers. The security system was a joke. Gerald had given me the code months ago and never changed it. The safe sat behind a false panel I'd noticed during a family cleanup day. Gerald's combination was his birthday. He was that kind of predictable. Inside 2 sets of books, the official ones, matching what they filed with the state, and the real ones, handwritten in Gerald's cramped script. My phone camera captured page after page. Invoice 3847. Full HVAC replacement. Mitchell residence, $8,500. But the Mitchell receipt in the official books showed $12,000. The difference cash, according to Gerald's notes. Direct payment, no tax. The pattern repeated. Dozens of transactions, hundreds of thousands in undeclared income. The lake house revealed more. Every Thursday night, Gerald hosted poker games. I'd driven out there on a Thursday at 11 p.m., parked half a mile away, and hiked through the woods, through the windows. I watched Gerald take envelope after envelope from local business owners, not poker winnings kickbacks for steering city contracts their way through his golf buddy on the city council. His desk drawer unlocked. The arrogant fool contained a handwritten ledger, names, dates, amounts. Thompson Construction, $5K, school district bid. Clearwater Plumbing, $3K, hospital renovation. But the mother lode was at the office. My COO background meant I understood their scheduling software inside and out. I'd actually helped Lucas set it up. What I discovered was a masterpiece of structured theft. The system had shadow entries hidden unless you knew the specific query commands. Real jobs done off the books, paid in cash, never reported. Warranty work charged to insurance companies for problems that didn't exist. Equipment purchases that were returned for cash refunds while keeping the tax deductions. The server logs told their own story. Gerald's login accessing files at odd hours, modifying timestamps, deleting customer complaints. Lucas's credentials used to approve fraudulent purchase orders, though the access times corresponded with when I knew Lucas was asleep. "Jesus, Evelyn," Riley said when I sent her the encrypted files. "This is a federal case. Tax evasion, wire fraud, insurance fraud. I just need leverage," I told her. "Package it all, make it airtight." The most damning discovery came from cross-referencing. That HVAC replacement at the family home, the one I'd paid for with my loan, they'd also claimed insurance for storm damage and received a settlement. Double-dipping using my money as the float, I created my power map on a legal pad, sitting in my car outside a Starbucks where they couldn't monitor me. Garage safe, evidence of dual books, tax evasion, lake house bribery, corruption, unreported income office systems, wire fraud, insurance fraud, falsified records, bank records, money laundering through company accounts. Each location, a pressure point. Each document, a weapon. 3 days before the confrontation, I'd made my final preparations. Backup drives hidden at a FedEx store box. Documents uploaded to 3 different cloud services. Riley retained as a consultant with a signed engagement letter. They thought they were starving me out. I was actually mapping their kingdom, copying every key to every door they'd forgotten to guard. The keys in my pocket that Sunday night weren't just metal. They were detonators. The ambush came wrapped in legal letterhead 2 weeks before my expulsion. I'd returned from grocery shopping to find Marlene in the living room with a man in a gray suit that screamed small-town lawyer. "Evelyn, this is Mr. Alder from Alder and Knox Legal," Marlene said, her smile sharp as glass. "He's helping us update some family documents." Thomas Alder had the kind of handshake that told you he'd already decided you were nobody important. He spread papers across the coffee table with practiced efficiency. "Mrs. Price?" he began. "Ms. Hart," I corrected. I kept my name. His eye twitched. "Ms. Hart, this is a simple residential consent agreement. With multiple families under one roof, insurance companies require clear documentation of living arrangements." I picked up the document. My COO instincts scanning for landmines. They were everywhere. The agreement reclassified me as a permitted guest rather than a resident. It included a liability waiver absolving the Prices of any responsibility for property damage or personal injury. But buried on page 3 was the real poison, a mutual release clause. "This releases any and all claims between parties," I read aloud, "including financial obligations, loans, or debts of any nature." "Standard language," Alder said smoothly. "Prevents frivolous lawsuits between family members." "Family members don't usually need $40,000 retainers," I said, recognizing the firm's name from the country club directory. "How much is Gerald paying you?" Marlene's mask slipped for a second. "How dare you? I'll need to review this with my own counsel," I said, standing. "There's nothing complex here," Alder pressed. "We could resolve this now, save everyone time and money." "My mother always said the most expensive contract is the one you don't read." I smiled at Marlene. She was a contract attorney. Did I ever mention that? I took the papers and left them sitting there, Alder's jaw working like he was chewing tobacco. That afternoon, I drove 2 towns over to meet Carla Whitmore, a lawyer Riley had recommended. Her office was small but meticulous. Degrees from Northwestern and Yale framed behind her desk. "They're trying to invalidate your loan," she said after reviewing everything. "This consent agreement would extinguish your claim." "Can they enforce it?" "Not if you don't sign. Your loan documents are solid. The conversion clause is particularly clever. Did you draft this yourself?" I had good teachers. She pulled up the county records on her computer. "The house is mortgaged to the hilt. 2 HELOCs, a reverse mortgage Gerald's mother signed before she passed. Your loan might actually be the only performing debt they have." "What about the 90-day clause?" "Still enforceable." She showed me the calendar. "They're already 60 days past due. 30 more days and you can convert to equity. With 35% preferred shares, you'd have blocking rights on major decisions." They know this, Alder does. That's why he's pushing the release. Over the next week, the pressure campaign intensified. Lucas started leaving printed articles about forgiveness in marriage on my nightstand. Gerald began referring to the loan as that misunderstanding from Winter. Marlene scheduled family dinners with their pastor, who gave sermons about the Good Samaritan not asking for repayment. Then came the gaslighting. "I don't remember agreeing to that interest rate," Gerald said one evening. "The documents are filed with Westfield Community Credit." I reminded him. "Documents can be forged. Lucas, did you see me sign anything?" Lucas stared at his plate. I don't really remember the details." "I have copies," I said. "Copies you made," Gerald countered. "Who knows what you've changed?" The next morning, I found my laptop moved, files accessed. They'd tried to delete my loan documentation folder, not knowing I had everything backed up in 3 locations. Marlene cornered me while I was packing for a non-existent business trip my cover for meeting with state investigators. "You know, Evelyn, sometimes I wonder about your mental state. All this paranoia about money, these accusations. Lucas mentioned you've been stressed. Maybe you should talk to someone." "Like Dr. Patterson." I named their family friend, a psychiatrist who'd lost his license in Illinois before setting up shop in Briar Hollow. Her face went pale. "How did you—" "I document everything. Marlene, including your husband's cash payments to help Patterson establish his practice here. Off the books, naturally." She left without another word. That night, I heard them arguing in their bedroom. Gerald's voice boomed through the walls. "Just get her to sign the damn papers." "She won't," Lucas said. "She's too smart." "Then make her uncomfortable enough to leave without them," Gerald snapped. I smiled in the dark, my phone recording every word. The lake house stood silent against the black water at 11:45 p.m. that Thursday. I'd parked at the abandoned boat launch a quarter-mile north, approaching through the tree line. Mosquitoes hummed in my ears as I crept toward the back entrance, Gerald's spare key cold in my hand. The boathouse attached to the main structure reeked of gasoline and mildew. Fishing rods lined one wall, but the locked cabinet beneath them interested me more. Gerald had mentioned it once during a family barbecue, his overflow filing for old business records. The padlock was a hardware store special. The screwdriver and hammer I'd brought made quick work of it. Inside, boxes of receipts, contracts, and handwritten ledgers dating back 5 years, but tucked behind them, wrapped in plastic, the black notebook. My phone's flashlight illuminated Gerald's cramped handwriting, names, dates, amounts. But these weren't customer records. They were bribes. Commissioner Bradley, $8,000, zoning variance approved. Chief Hansen, $3,500 monthly, look away from permits. Judge Walker, $15,000, dismissed lawsuit, Brennan case. The Brennan case. I remembered Lucas mentioning it, a family whose elderly mother died from carbon monoxide poisoning after Price Heating and Air installed a faulty furnace. The lawsuit had mysteriously disappeared. My hands shook as I photographed each page. This wasn't just fraud anymore. This was a criminal enterprise. A car engine rumbled outside. Headlights swept across the windows. I killed my flashlight, heart hammering. Gerald's voice carried through the walls. He was early. Another car door slammed. Multiple footsteps on the gravel. "Told you the Thursday game was getting too obvious," a gravelly voice said. Commissioner Bradley. I slipped the notebook back, eased the cabinet shut. The broken padlock would have to wait. Voices grew closer to the boathouse. The small bathroom window was my only option. I pushed it open, wincing at the squeal of rusty hinges, and squeezed through, dropping into the marsh grass below. Mud sucked at my shoes as I crawled toward the tree line. "You hear something?" Bradley asked. "Raccoons," Gerald said. "Got a whole family of them out here." I held my breath, pressed against a pine tree, until they went inside. Back at my car, I uploaded everything to Riley before driving away. My phone buzzed immediately. Holy shit. Evelyn, this is RICO territory. Racketeering. "There's more," I said. "Check the sublease agreement I just sent." Hidden in the filing cabinet had been a rental agreement for the lake house, not to Gerald, but to a shell company called BH Holdings, registered to Brooke Hale, Gerald's drinking buddy. Rent $3,000 a month, paid from Price Heating and Air's facilities maintenance budget. Gerald was literally embezzling from his own company to pay himself rent on a property he already owned. "The Thursday poker games," Riley said, understanding immediately. "He's running them as a business expense, while taking bribes from city officials who attend. You need to leave that house. Tonight. These people are dangerous." "3 more days," I said. "I need 3 more days." The next morning, I acted normal, made breakfast, smiled at Lucas, complimented Marlene's new haircut. They had no idea I'd been out, no idea what I'd found. But that evening, Gerald made an announcement at dinner. "I'm updating security at all our properties. New locks, new alarm codes. Can't be too careful." He stared directly at me. "Seems we might have had some trespassers at the lake house." "Oh," I kept my voice steady. "Broken padlock on the storage cabinet. Nothing missing, thankfully." His eyes never left mine. "Probably kids. Or someone looking for something that doesn't belong to them." "How frightening," Marlene said, but she was watching me too. Lucas pushed food around his plate, silent. "I'll need all keys returned for recoding." Gerald continued. "Family keys stay with family." "Of course," I said. Though, technically, I am family. By marriage. Marriage can be dissolved, Gerald said quietly. Blood can't. The threat hung in the air like smoke. That night, I found Lucas in the garage, pretending to organize tools. They know you were there, he said without looking at me. Do you even care what your father is doing? He's my father. He's a criminal. Lucas finally met my eyes. And you're my wife. Was that ever real? Or were you always planning this? I loved you, I said, surprised by the past tense. Before you chose them over truth. I'm choosing survival. You should too. Sign the papers. Walk away. With nothing. With your life intact. He turned back to the toolbox. Dad's patience isn't infinite. I left him there, surrounded by the instruments of his father's honest trade, built on a foundation of lies. Monday morning, 8:15 a.m. The day after my expulsion, I sat in my car outside Westfield Community Credit, documents spread across the passenger seat. Riley was on speakerphone. You're sure about this? She asked. They're 93 days past due. The conversion clause is crystal clear. Once you file, there's no going back. There never was. Inside the credit union, the manager, Tom Hayworth, remembered me from the original loan signing. His expression shifted when he saw the stack of papers I placed on his desk. Ms. Hart, how can I help you? I'm executing the conversion clause on loan agreement 447B. Price Heating and Air is 93 days delinquent. Per Section 8. Subsection 3. The outstanding balance of $120,000 plus accrued interest of $4,800 converts to 35% preferred equity. He pulled up the account, fingers clicking across the keyboard. I show several promises to pay from Mr. Price. Promises aren't payments. I have written documentation of every declined transaction. I handed him the printed emails, bank statements, screenshots of bounced checks. Tom studied the original agreement. This is very thorough. I need formal documentation of the conversion sent to their registered business address today. Certified mail. That's certainly within your rights, though this could get contentious. It already is. While Tom processed the paperwork, I pulled out my laptop and logged into the Price Heating and Air scheduling system using the admin credentials I'd created months ago, credentials Gerald never knew existed. First change. Every customer-facing page now displayed a banner, System Maintenance in Progress. For immediate service, call our emergency line. The emergency line. My Google Voice number. Second change. Password resets for all employee accounts, with new passwords sent to email addresses I controlled. The staff would arrive Tuesday morning locked out of their own system. Third change automatic email to the 10 largest commercial clients. From the official company address, Dear valued customer, we are implementing new compliance standards for all service contracts. Effective immediately, all invoicing must be transparent with detailed breakdowns. No cash payments will be accepted. Please contact our new compliance officer, Evelyn Hart, with any questions. My phone buzzed. Gerald, probably just receiving notice that someone was accessing the system. I declined the call. Tom returned with a stamped document. The conversion is official. You now own 35% preferred shares. These grant you dividend priority and veto power over any expenditure exceeding $5,000. Perfect. I'll need copies for the State Tax Board and the Secretary of State's office. His eyebrows rose. Planning something. Due diligence. Back in my car, 17 missed calls from Gerald, 12 from Lucas, 3 from Marlene. I called Riley instead. Phase 1 complete. I'm a shareholder. Their move, she said. Want to bet how they respond. Violence or lawyers. Why not both? I drove to the office of Price Heating and Air at noon, knowing the crew would be out on calls. The parking lot was empty except for Gerald's truck. I used my copied key one last time. Gerald was in his office, phone pressed to his ear, face purple. Don't care what it takes. Get her out of the system. He saw me, slammed the phone down. You think you're clever. I think I'm a shareholder. I placed the conversion documents on his desk. 35%. Preferred? You manipulative. Careful. Threatening a shareholder could be considered breach of fiduciary duty. I'm recording this conversation. His fists clenched. For a moment, I thought he might actually hit me. What do you want? What I'm owed, plus transparency, starting with opening your books to an independent audit. Over my dead body. That can be arranged through the courts, or... I pulled out my phone, showing him photos of the black ledger. We can discuss your Thursday night enterprise. Commissioner Bradley might be interested to know he's been documented. The color drained from his face. You broke into... I accessed company property as a shareholder investigating financial irregularities. Very different legal framework. Lucas will divorce you. He chose that last night when he nodded. Gerald's desk phone rang. He grabbed it. What? What do you mean they can't log in? All of them. I smiled. Technical difficulties. As the new compliance officer, I'll have them resolved once we establish proper protocols. You can't. I can. Section 12 of your corporate bylaws. Preferred shareholders have operational oversight rights during financial distress. And Gerald, you're very distressed. Another phone call. This time, his cell. Marlene's shrill voice leaked through. There's a police car outside. Not police, I corrected. Process server. Formal notice of shareholder demands for inspection of books and records. You have 72 hours to comply. I turned to leave, paused at the door. Oh, and Gerald, that HVAC system you double-billed, the one I paid for that you also claimed on insurance. The State Fraud Department finds that particularly interesting. The sound of his fist hitting the desk followed me out. Tuesday evening, 6:45 p.m. The Price family dining room had been transformed into a war council. Papers covered the mahogany table where pot roasts usually sat. Gerald, Marlene, Lucas, and Thomas Alder huddled together like conspirators. They didn't hear me enter through the back door. I still had my key, though they'd changed the locks on everything else. Can't freeze us out of our own company, Gerald was saying. She can and she has, Alder replied, sweat beading on his forehead. The conversion clause was ironclad. She owns 35% preferred shares with blocking rights. Then buy her out. With what money you're leveraged to the teeth. I cleared my throat. They all turned, Lucas half rising from his chair. How did you... Marlene started. You only changed the exterior locks. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Forgot about the back door. Typical of how you run things all show. No substance. Get out, Gerald growled. No. I placed a manila folder on the table. We need to discuss your future. What's left of it. Alder reached for the folder. Inside copies of the state tax fraud complaint, the insurance fraud report, and the opening pages of the RICO investigation request, just enough to show them the scope without revealing everything. Jesus Christ, Alder whispered. He's not going to help you, I said. But I might. You're trying to destroy us, Marlene said, her usual composure cracking. I'm trying to get paid. You're destroying yourselves. I pulled out my phone, showing them an email. Detective Morrison from the State Police Economic Crimes Unit will be here Thursday morning at 9. That gives you 36 hours. 36 hours for what? Lucas asked, his voice hollow. To decide if you want to cooperate with authorities or be defendants. I looked at each of them. I've already submitted evidence of tax evasion, insurance fraud, and bribery. But I haven't yet submitted the ledger documenting which family members knew what and when. Gerald's face was almost purple. You think you can blackmail us. I think I can offer you a choice. Full repayment of my loan plus interest. Clean transfer of my shares back to the company. A written agreement that this family will have no further contact with me. In exchange, I'll tell Detective Morrison that my complaint was primarily about tax issues I discovered after becoming a shareholder, and that the family is cooperating fully. And if we refuse, Marlene asked, then I submit everything, including Lucas's signature on fraudulent purchase orders, including Marlene's notarization of false documents, including evidence that this was a coordinated enterprise going back 5 years. I pulled out a second phone a burner and played an audio recording. Gerald's voice filled the room. Just deposit the Bradley money in the personal account. We'll wash it through the quarterly maintenance budget. Marlene's voice responded on the recording. Should I backdate the invoices like last time? I stopped the playback. There are 47 more recordings. The room was silent except for the grandfather clock ticking. You were recording us in our own home. Lucas's voice broke. You were stealing from me in your own home. Which offense do you think carries prison time? Alder loosened his tie. I need to recuse myself. This is beyond. I can't be party to— Sit down, Gerald snapped. You're in this too. Your retainer came from the same account that paid Bradley. The lawyer sank back into his chair. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Tomorrow morning, you'll wire the full $124,800 to my account. Marlene will sign the share transfer documents. Lucas will sign divorce papers uncontested, clean break. Then you'll gather your real books, your fake books, and every document related to your fraud, and you'll hand them to Detective Morrison yourself. That's admission of guilt, Alder protested. It's cooperation with investigation. Very different outcome. Ask any prosecutor, they love volunteers. Gerald stood, his chair scraping. You think you've won. You think you can come into my family, my business, my town, and Gerald. Marlene's voice was ice. Sit down. He turned to her, shocked. She has us, Marlene said simply. We pay, or we go to prison. Those are the only options. Mom, Lucas started. Did you know, she asked him. When you signed those purchase orders, did you know what your father was doing? Lucas's silence was answer enough. Then you're complicit too. Marlene turned to me. We'll pay, tomorrow morning, all of it. Marlene, Gerald roared. Would you prefer federal prison because that's where this leads? She's not bluffing. Look at her eyes. She's already won. We're just negotiating surrender terms. I stood, leaving the folder on the table. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Wire transfer confirmation to my lawyer, Carla Whitmore, 1 minute late, and Detective Morrison gets everything. I walked to the door, paused. Oh, Lucas. Your things are in boxes in the garage. The divorce papers are on top. Sign them tonight. Evelyn, he said, and for a moment I saw the man I'd married lost, young, afraid. I'm sorry. No, I said. You're just caught. The grandfather clock chimed 7 as I left, each note ringing like a countdown to their reckoning. Thursday morning, 8:55 a.m. The Price family home looked different in daylight, smaller somehow, like a stage set after the play has ended. Detective Morrison's unmarked sedan sat in the driveway beside 2 state police cruisers. Inside, I could hear Gerald's raised voice, then silence. I stood on the front porch with Carla Whitmore and Riley Moore. The wire transfer had hit my account at 8:59 the previous morning, 1 minute before deadline. The divorce papers were signed, notarized, filed. The share transfer was complete, but I'd kept my promise to be here for the finale. The door opened. Detective Morrison emerged first, followed by Gerald in handcuffs. His purple face had gone gray, shoulders slumped in his expensive suit. Behind him, Marlene walked unrestrained but accompanied by an officer. She'd negotiated immunity in exchange for testimony the pragmatist to the end. Lucas stood in the doorway, not arrested but not free either. He'd been designated a cooperating witness, pending further investigation. Gerald saw me and lunged forward. You destroyed everything. 3 generations of, you destroyed it, I said calmly. I just documented it. Morrison's team began carrying out boxes files, computers, the contents of Gerald's safe. One officer emerged with the black ledger in an evidence bag. Commissioner Bradley was probably being arrested across town at this very moment. Get out of my house! Gerald screamed one last time as they led him to the cruiser. Get out of! The car door slammed, cutting him off. Marlene approached me, her dignity intact despite everything. You planned this from the beginning. No, I planned to be your daughter-in-law. You planned to rob me. I just adapted faster. She studied my face. Lucas never deserved you. On that, we agree. She walked to the second cruiser, her sensible heels clicking on the pavement one last time. Lucas hadn't moved from the doorway. His eyes were red, hollow. What happens now? Now you learn to stand on your own feet. The company's assets are frozen, but Morrison says if you cooperate fully, you might avoid charges. You'll have to sell the house to pay the tax penalties. Start over somewhere else. Where will you go? Back to Chicago. Northline Metrics held my position. I pulled the house keys from my pocket, all of them, the copies I'd made and the originals I'd taken that last night. I set them on the porch rail. I don't need these anymore. Riley stepped forward with a tablet. The forensic audit is complete. Between the tax recovery and insurance fraud restitution, the government will recoup about $2.3 million. Your documentation was flawless. Evelyn. What about us? Lucas asked. What about our marriage? Did any of it mean anything? I thought about lying, giving him some comfort, but I was done with lies. It meant everything, until you chose them over me, until you nodded when your father told me to get out. Carla touched my arm. We should go. The press will be here soon. As we walked to my car, now packed with my belongings, Lucas called out, The loan money, will you get it all back? I turned one last time. Every penny, plus interest, plus damages. Your family home's equity will cover it once the lien's clear. So you're taking our house too? No, Lucas. The bank is taking your house. I'm just taking what was mine. I got in my car, started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I watched Lucas sink onto the porch steps, head in his hands. Behind him, officers continued carrying out evidence of 3 generations of lies. Gerald had been wrong about one thing. I hadn't come here with nothing. I'd come with intelligence, integrity, and the ability to see patterns. I was leaving with those same gifts, plus a hard-earned education in how family can become a weapon if you let it. The GPS showed 4 hours to Chicago, 4 hours to my real life, my real future. I pulled onto the highway as the first news van passed me heading toward the Price House. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant at Northline. Welcome back. Your office is ready. I smiled, accelerating past the Briar Hollow city limits sign. Behind me, an empire built on fraud was crumbling. Ahead, my life was waiting clean, honest, and entirely my own. Gerald had roared, "Get out of my house," that night, thinking he was exiling me. He'd actually set me free. Get out, I said to the empty car, to the memory, to the rearview mirror reflecting a town I'd never see again. No, Gerald, get audited. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to hear what you think about Evelyn's journey.